Hey guys, it's Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, jumping on here for a special, and these are really, they've transformed. This one is a special immigration live Q&A. It's been a little bit rough and tumble in my office this morning as I have been trying to get a number of things sorted out, including just wrapping up a call with immigration and doing a debriefing with my other table officers so that we can get the information out to our members as quickly as possible. I think some of you saw the post I did this morning with getting my bike back. Today was the first day in about 3 weeks where I was finally able to leave the house, and I carefully drove straight over to the police station, met with the officer, gave my report on the stolen bike, and I got it back, which was awesome. So today started really, really well. And then I had an opportunity to race back and get back just in time for the call. So lots of change, lots of things going on. I'm looking forward to answering a number of questions that have been sent in by listeners on a number of our various social media platforms now. So a big shout out to Igor, our fine paralegal here at Holthe Immigration Law. And he's been doing a really good job at really getting the messages out, collecting the questions that people have posted. So thank you so much, Igor. I also will be having join me here in a few minutes once we get everybody logged in and people realize that the Live, well, the Immigration Live Q&A, Canadian Immigration Live Q&A is going live. I will be introducing my associate, Susan Wood, who's going to be sharing some up-to-date insights on a couple different aspects of the effects of COVID-19 on our immigration processing. And you guys have a lot of questions. For those that are tuning in, I can see here Kavir says, Igor is excellent, I must say. Yes, he is, Kavir. So those of you who are tuning in, as always, post in the comments where you're listening from. We love to see where all of the viewers are. It just helps us to feel like we're one big family. It helps us to all pull in and feel like we're all in this together. And there's nothing that motivates me more to keep doing this than to see the reach of these sessions and to see how many people are tuning in at crazy hours in their countries, whether it's the middle of the night, or 2, 3 a.m. for some of you. So it is so, so cool to see where you're listening in from. So please go ahead now, post your comments as to where you're tuning in from. We have Adiola, and if you have questions, hold them off. Ilsama, hold off your questions for now. Adiola is in Finland. Awesome. It's great to have you joining us. Anshu says, congrats for the bike. Thanks, Anshu. You guys have no idea. Okay, if you go back and you watch probably about 6 months ago, and you see how fat my face has gotten from all the weight that I've been putting on, oh my goodness, that bike was my weight loss program. And then it got stolen. Well, we had the winter as well, which wasn't good. But usually I'm out riding around on my bike and getting exercise. So, so I'm so grateful to have it back. I'm anxious also for this world that we're in, this COVID-19, this self-isolation. I'm anxious for us all to be kind of freed and liberated. But as we're waiting for more people to tune in here, I can tell you that selfishly, I have been so grateful for the time that I've been able to spend with my family, where we're actually present, where we're talking about things, where we're sitting around the dinner table and multiple meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all together as a family. And so these times are quite precious. And I've been trying to document this in my journal or my diary so that I will never forget these times. And we hope that everybody out there all over the world is staying safe and well, that the efforts that people are taking to self-isolate, I hope that even if your country's not telling you to do it, that you're doing it, because it's the way that we can curb this. And if we all buckle down and just do it, we're going to have the best results. So thanks. A big shout out to all the health professionals. Some of you that are tuning in may actually be providing healthcare services in your countries. So big shout out to you, all the doctors, nurses, and all of the associated people for all of the work, just really getting out on the front lines of this battle, this war that we're waging against COVID-19. So thank you to all of you. Okay, let's see where else we have people tuning in from. And once again, hold off on your questions and I'll let you know when you can put those in. So Steve's from Latvia. Hi, Steve. Let's see here. Steve says it's 10 p.m. there. Great. Annette is in Sauble Beach, Ontario. Welcome. And we've got Nilesh is in Sudbury. Ralph is back again as always up there in Edmonton. Great to have you, Ralph. Tamadir is in Bangladesh. Rami's in Egypt. Oh, Rami, I am going to get to Egypt. I was so disappointed not being able to come. I was supposed to leave March 18th. And unfortunately, like many people, that didn't happen. But one day I will get there, Rami. Nelson's joining from Colombia. Welcome, Nelson. Hussein's Pakistan. And Bella is here as well. Hi, Bella. Bella Hansky. Ralph's sister. Awesome. It's so good to have you. And I can see, I love your the icon that you have here with the family, you, Kai, and Jaden. That is so cool. And then of course, Jaden's up there on top of Ralph. I can see in Ralph's image there. I miss you guys so much. Okay. Let's see. Ambi is in Toronto. Bipasha is Dhaka. Sonu is in India. Bella says, we need to talk, Mark. She's laughing because she's already told me she can help me to get back on track with this weight gain I've been putting on here. So yes, Bella, I will listen to you this time. Jazdeep's given me some thumbs up. Very cool. Waka says, hope you're doing good with your family. Asan is from Pakistan. And Welwyn is in Toronto. Arvinder is in India. We've got a bunch of people from all over. I'm trying to catch everybody. I think I should stop because we've got over 100 people that are just tuning in live right now, and it'll take a long time to get through everyone. So thank you for posting. Check it out, the comments, see where everybody's listening from. We've got people from India and Pakistan and all over the world. Ottawa, Udit, good to see you, my friend. And it's really, really cool. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, the first thing that I want to do, like I said before, is I want to introduce you all to my associate, Susan Wood, who's joined me before. So just give me a second. I'm going to pull up Susan here. Let's see if I can get it here. This is the one. There we go. Now you are live, Susan. So
hello, everybody.
It's good to have you joining me today.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
All right. Well, Susan.
Usually I'm watching from the sidelines.
Yeah. Well, this time you're right up in the forefront. And one of the things that's really important for me is that everybody out there knows that Holthe Immigration Law is not a one-man show. It is not a one-person show. We're able to do what we do because of the amazing team that we're building here. Now, we're small right now. We're just getting started. Susan is an immigration lawyer up in Edmonton. And I've known Susan for years, and we've had a really close relationship, and I was excited for her to join me when I struck out on my own, opening up my own immigration law firm. So grateful to have her. She's going to be talking and answering some questions about COVID-19 and the impact that it's having on all of you. And so we're going to cover just a couple points, not take up a lot of time, but just cover some of the high points. And then as we move forward, then we'll transition into some of the questions that were sent in, just a few, by those who sent them in via email on some of our social media channels, and posted. And Igor was able to collect those and pull those in for me. And then some of you sent them by email to info@holthelaw.com, and those went to Mauricia, and she was able to collect those and post those. But we've got obviously so many questions. And for those of you who are watching live, I actually want to make this worth your while. And so I'm going to make sure I give us lots of time to cover the questions that you guys are posting live. But hold off, don't post them yet. Okay, so Susan, how are things up in Edmonton? How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing well. We're in our house almost all the time. Yeah. It's been sunny the last 2 days. It's been snowing a little bit for about a week every day, even though it's mid-April. So we're glad to see spring is happening. Yeah. Snow is starting to melt. It's nice.
Yeah, it's so nice now that we're actually in a position where we can feel the warmth of the sun. And so it's really, really nice to see that spring is on its way and it's making its way towards us. So now it's just a matter of us being able to get out and really, really enjoy it, which we're all being very cautious and careful right now.
Yeah.
All right. So, what I'd like to do, Susan, there's a couple things that I want to talk about with you. And Susan is the author of the article. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shift. I've got so much going on my home screen here. I'm going to shift my. I'll close. Okay, we've got those ones. I'm going to shift my screen around just for a second here, and I want to show you guys on our Canadian immigration, our Holthe Law site, Holthe Immigration Law webpage. We have a section for blogs. And if you click on it, Susan is drafting, or she has created, our article on Canadian immigration and COVID-19 travel restrictions. And for those of you who are wondering if you can travel, you're wondering if what's going to be required to be reunited with your family, these are some of the issues that Susan addressed in this amazing blog post. And this post is constantly being updated. So if you link to the, and we'll post it in the comment section, we'll have Igor maybe post that for us. This blog post that we have right here that was written by Susan, we're constantly updating it. So you can see last updated when? Just, I guess, is it the 7th today? It's all a blur.
Yeah,
Just
this
updated.
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked that is because I worked till 3 a.m. this morning finishing up a paper for another conference that probably isn't going to happen, but we're going to do it virtually. And so I was working till 3 a.m. So sometimes I think of yesterday as being April the 7th, but I guess it's today. All right. So without me blithering on here, let's jump to a couple things. So one of the questions people ask a lot about is the reunification of family members that are not in Canada. And so maybe, Susan, you can take a second and just talk a little bit about some of the issues that people are facing when they're separated from their family, and how these travel restrictions are, in some cases, keeping families apart or delaying their reunification.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, if you're coming from anywhere outside the United States, you have to show that you fit on the list of exemptions, and on the list of exemptions are the immediate family members of citizens and PRs, and the immediate family members of foreign workers, foreign nationals. Everybody has to show that they're not coming in for tourism or entertainment or recreation, and it's a double negative, so it's tricky. Like, it's not that you have to show that it's an essential reason, but really it is. When you read the Canadian immigration information, they say you can't come in for these reasons, but that means obviously you have to come in for an essential reason. They have said if you're coming to live with your family member, that's considered to be an essential reason. If you're coming to visit, it's not necessarily an essential reason, and you have to prove why the visit is very important. So if you're in a situation where you've been used to being apart and it's just every May you come for a month-long visit, immigration may or may not view that as essential. So you have to convince them why it is. And then you have to recognize that there's different rules for family members of permanent residents and citizens than foreign nationals. The foreign nationals also need a consular letter to be able to come up. And I'll just mention, Mark, I can't see your screen that's displaying because I went on the Facebook page, but I couldn't turn off the video the audio without turning off what you were saying to me.
No problem.
So I'm walking blind here of what you're showing them.
What I'm going to do, Susan, is I'm going to share my screen, and this link is in Susan's blog. And so if you go to our site, like I identified before, if you go here at the bottom of her article, Canadian Immigration and COVID-19 Travel Restrictions, you'll see that she has put together a handy list of links. And one of those links is really one of the most important places that you will need to bookmark for the purposes of knowing what you can and can't do with respect to the travel restrictions Canada's put in place. So Susan, I've just clicked to this, to the page itself, and I'm showing them right here where you have the links that specifically identify immediate family members of Canadian citizens and permanent residents.
Yeah, and it's the second one.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So we've got that. I've pulled that one up right now.
Great. And so if you look at that, you'll see that they specifically state, which is a really great step forward. On the weekend on April 3rd, they posted this. So now they tell exactly what kinds of documents you need to be able to show that you fit the exemptions. So if you're coming in to be with a permanent resident or citizen, they want you to have a document that shows your family member's status and also shows your relationship to the family member. So it may be a marriage certificate, it may be a birth certificate, depending on what your situation is. If you're living common law, I would suggest that you get the advice of a lawyer to see what documents you can put together to show that you have that relationship.
Yes.
And
also
then
on here, I see, Susan, also in here, you know, you've mentioned this already, and one of the aspects is showing that you're traveling for an essential reason, and not for reasons that are optional or non-essential, such as tourism, recreation, or entertainment. And I've kind of highlighted that, and obviously that's an important part if when you have a reunification of family.
It's an essential part, if you want to pardon the pun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. No, you have to prove it. Yeah. And don't forget, the airline people are screening you also about getting on the airplane. So it's not just the people at the port of entry. You have to be able to show at the airport that you've got an essential purpose to be coming here.
Right. And they will also be doing their health checks, which is also very interesting. And so, so what happens, Susan, if someone is showing symptoms?
They don't get on the plane. Is the short.
But I'm a Canadian. But I'm a Canadian citizen, Susan. I have a right to come to my country, don't I?
Yes, you do. But my understanding is that you have to self-isolate in the country that you are until you don't have any symptoms left. That's my understanding of it.
It is
that
100%. That's
Yeah.
the order in council.
Yeah.
That's under the
Yeah.
Aeronautics Act. You are barred. Too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very strict about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have to have specific documents to show the status of your family member. I'll just get you to scroll down to that part of the page, Mark, to show them, such as a passport, proof of citizenship, that sort of thing. Now, don't forget that even though they have these travel rules, you still have to have the regular immigration documents.
Yes.
So if you need an ETA, you have to have an ETA. If you need a visa, you have to have a visa already approved. And that's going to be a problem for some people because in most of the world right now, you can't get biometrics done.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is I don't know if there was any update about that on the call today.
So I'll jump in here. So I just received, we had more clarification, and I'll be honest right now, immigration is not taking any steps to facilitate travel without biometrics or without the essential things. And so while the biometric offices are closed, unless there's some change that happens in the near future, people who are applying for work permits and things like that, or study permits, and leaving aside the essential nature of the study permits, but even those who are applying for work permits, it's still going to be difficult without being able to get the biometrics, and they're not being facilitated right now. And the border, the CBSA at the ports of entry have the ability to do biometrics at the ports of entry, but they have strongly asserted that that's not in their job description, and the protection of the officers is paramount. So all of you, the message that immigration wants to send out is this truly an essential purpose? Like, is the travel that you are making to Canada, can it wait? And this is all from the standpoint of what's in the best interest of the globe and curbing this virus. And so even work permits, when it's in an industry that is like the critical industries, yes, we're absolutely facilitating and do what we can to get those people into Canada. But at the same time, a lot for all the other purposes, is it really, really essential that you come at this time? And so, that's the message that they're sending, and they're not doing anything at this stage to facilitate or make it easier for people to travel.
Now, I'd just like to point out for the audience, Mark, because you don't actually promote yourself really very much. Mark knows this, he's not making it up. He's the vice chair of the National Immigration Section. That's an association of lawyers all across Canada that practice immigration law, and he's the vice chair of that organization, and next year he'll be the chair. And every Tuesday morning he's on a call with immigration officials about the breaking news on how they're treating COVID-19. So this is, reliable information that he's telling you.
And the reason that we're doing this live Q&A that we now call the Immigration Live Q&A is because that meeting goes from 11:30 to 12:30. And it obviously overlapped with the regular scheduled times, so that's why we're doing this at 1.
Yeah. So there's different rules for foreign nationals who want to come in and visit other foreign nationals. Again, it has to be an essential purpose. You have to have documents to show your relationship with the foreign national and what their status is, and you still need your visitor visa or ETA to be able to get in. The extra thing that you need is a letter from IRCC, as they say on here, confirming that you're exempt from the travel restrictions. You've also seen that described as a letter from a consular officer. That's the same thing. Gotcha. Are you going to pull that up on this?
I've got it. And
Mark
I've
has
also,
a sample.
And actually, that sample, I don't actually have the sample. We'll show it next week what the actual letter looks like. But I have posted up here how you, when it comes to boarding your flight, you must have written authorization, as Susan indicated. And then it shows how to get it. And so it's an email to IRCC, and then the email address is right here. And then they're pretty good, guys, about getting back within 48 hours to tell you what to do next. So that's how you initiate the process if you are wanting to be reunited. Now, remember, you're not with them together. You are requesting to be reunited, and there's a specific reason why they have reunited there. And so there's still something. It's one of the things, Susan, I will clarify, is that it's still up in the air as to whether or not this particular instruction applies to someone who is looking to travel right now with their family accompanying them. And there's been a lot of debate, and immigration emphasized reuniting. And so stay tuned with this. But if you're in Canada and you wish to be reunited with your family, this is the process that they would go through, is submitting this email. So I'll turn it back to you, Susan.
Yeah, and then another thing in terms of what you're talking about, Mark, is I couldn't find it before the authority for this before the live Q&A today, but I'm sure I read over the weekend a reference that even foreign workers that are coming, when they have to be able to show when they get to the port of entry that they have a job to go to, that the employer is still operating in that kind of thing, which are the usual rules when a foreign worker is coming in. Yeah. But that will also apply.
Yes. Yeah. And most importantly, one of the reasons why it's so difficult for you to just jump on a plane and come to Canada, if you have not been here before, is the expectation of self-isolation. And if you have no place to live, you have, you have no, shelves full of food to last you for 2 weeks, that can be a real problem. Yeah. And the government doesn't want people coming and then having to go and source all of these resources. And when they need to be self-isolating to protect the spread. And that's why the International Experience Canada class, for those who are used to coming in on working holiday permits, a lot of those things are kind of put on hold right now because, one, those types of entries are non-essential, right? They tend to be more optional. So that's just one little insight from today that I got.
But there is hope. If you have a visa already, or you have an ETA already, and your partner or spouse or other family member is already in Canada, and you have a good reason to come, like you want to be united while we're facing this virus, then you can ask for a consular letter, and we're hearing that they're consistently being given within 48 hours.
Great point.
And the other thing is, family members are not just the regular family members of spouse or children. There's a broader list of family members that are included in the order. So even if you're a child that's over age 22, but say both your parents are working here, if you can convince them that you're coming in for an essential reason, you'll be allowed under this family member
You
category.
make a pitch. And I
Yeah.
can speak from my personal experience with a daughter that's 23 years old who
Mhm.
was at school in the US who needed to, to return home. Well, if I was a foreign worker here in Canada and my daughter was from going to school in a different country, it makes perfect sense that she would be returning back to me and our family where
Yeah.
our family unit is temporarily residing. So that
Yeah.
example is a uh,
Hmm.
perfect
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's shift then to the last portion, and then we'll open it up for questions. So if you're already posting questions, hold off for a second. We'll get to you in just a little bit. The last thing that I wanted to address, Susan, was people that have confirmations of permanent residence,
Yeah.
and how, because we get lots of those questions. Either your application is in the queue, like one of the things that didn't come up this time that I was going to ask, but there were so many questions from the other organizations as well. There just wasn't time to cover everything. But the
Hmm.
question of, are they still doing rounds of invitations? And that's what many people are asking. And at this stage, we have not received any confirmation that they are not. In fact, to a large extent, they've said it's business as usual. And so we'll see how that plays out. And I'll leave that for another day, the discussion
Yeah.
of what that would look for in terms of the actual scores that are going to
Mhm.
be issued. But for people that are in the process who have received a confirmation of permanent residence or even permanent residents themselves, there are differing rules depending upon at what stage you're at. So maybe you
Yeah.
could talk a little bit about that, Susan.
Yeah. If you received your permanent resident visa before March 18th, then you're allowed to come. Excuse me. Don't worry, folks. I've been tested. I have a negative COVID test. This is just dry Alberta northern winter air. Um, so you're allowed to come. If you can't come because of trouble getting on a plane or various other reasons, then what you need to do is contact the immigration using the web form to let them know what your situation is. Um, Now, we actually don't have any official news about whether or not any visas were issued after March 18th.
Yeah.
But if you got one after March 18th and it's going to expire soon, because they're always tied to the length of the medicals, you've got to contact immigration using the web form and tell them what your situation is. Say, look, I want to come. I can't come because I can't get a flight, or well, actually, they can't even get on a plane. They have to say, look, my visa was issued on March 19th, and I can't get on the plane because I don't meet the travel restrictions. And our understanding is that they're going to give extensions to people about that, but we haven't seen anything officially in writing about that. But they do seem to be trying to be very accommodating, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't give extensions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll add another piece to this. So you can see I'm sharing the screen now. If we already approved your permanent resident application, on or before March 18th, it says, but you haven't traveled to Canada yet, you're exempt from the travel measures. So yes, you can travel before March 18th, as Susan indicated.
Mm,
And then the question becomes landing appointments if you're in Canada. And
right.
one of the
Yeah.
challenges, we've had clients that were driving up to their appointments when they got there and it was the office was closed. And
Mhm.
so they've indicated that for those individuals, there will be messaging coming out. They've sent out an email already to you. You should have received it that says basically, we're trying to figure it out. Hang tight. Don't call us. We'll call you. And one of the interesting aspects with all of this is, okay, so if you're in Canada or outside Canada, what's happening? Are they issuing confirmations of permanent residence? And we have received confirmation that they are, but obviously they're very much limited in the numbers that they're issuing, and
Mhm.
the officers that are available to process applications. And one of the other things that they also indicated to us is that if you're in Canada, like the Canadian Experience class, they actually are putting on hold the issuances of the confirmation of permanent residence. So if you're wondering why it's taking so long and you're in Canada, why haven't you received, the passport request, the confirmation of permanent residence, when everything says it's all done? It's because they actually have put those on hold while they're sorting out how they're going to do the landing for people in Canada. Because
Yeah.
remember, don't go to the border to do your flag polling like people used to. The CBSA does not like that. They made it abundantly clear, and they've got this fancy little new Twitter post or whatever they've been posting this campaign I can't even remember what it's called now. I forget how they worded it. But basically, they're saying, do you really need to travel now, kind of thing. And so, yeah, so that's why you're probably not getting your confirmation of permanent residence or the actual that final step, because they're not sure what to do with you yet. And so hang tight. They're working through that. Excellent. Anything else, Susan, to add to wrap up?
I just say don't give up hope.
Yeah.
Like you can see, the Canadian government is trying hard to help everybody here, trying to set up special provisions for foreign workers, students, visitors that are here and stuck and can't get home, even if they wanted to. Right now, everybody's still trying to work things out.
Yeah.
We're hoping that it'll be done soon. We're hoping that this isolation will stop soon, but we really don't know. And so just keep an eye on the news. Watch the websites. That's the main thing I would say. Watch the immigration website if you're concerned about health coverage. Make sure that you know where the health insurance website is for the province where you are, and follow those updates to make sure that you do whatever you need to do as soon as it's announced to make sure that you've got the services that you need.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. And I'll just
Thanks.
and I'll remind everyone as well, Susan's article, Canadian Immigration and COVID-19 Travel Restrictions, this is a living document. So you go back here and you can see it was just updated just today, April the 7th. If you scroll down at the bottom of it, she has a really, really good explanation of everything. And then at the bottom, you will find links to the most important places. And, when it comes to this, I guess, Susan, one thing we could add in here is maybe even the links to the various health authorities in each of the provinces. We could maybe
Yeah, that would be a
on
good
as
idea.
well. Yeah.
Yes.
And just to kind of, I know everybody that's in Canada is probably well connected and familiar with all of these. And I would encourage all of you to do all you can to abide by whatever the restrictions and measures that are being imposed in your own countries. The more we can comply, even though it's hurting all of us to stay at home, the sooner we're going to be able to weather this storm. And, obviously, if your country has control over the coronavirus, Canada is going to be much more willing to, facilitate countries that are doing what they can to make the situation better. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to see you all, everybody.
All right. Well, we'll drop Susan off here, and then we will we'll say goodbye to her, and then we'll transition to the next phase. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So once again, guys, yeah, crazy day today. Lots going on. I didn't even have time to put up my green screen and broadcast from some fantastic location. So you got my messy office in the background here, but that's okay. This has never been about fancy, flash and production value. It's all about just making sure that you're getting content that's really super helpful. All right. So thank you, Susan. Great. Remember that resource on our page. Go check it out frequently. All right. I'm going to start off first by just answering a few questions that were sent in through some of our various social media platforms. We're going to hit those quick, and then hold off on your questions, guys, because then we're going to shift and I'm going to give you guys time to do that. As I take a quick look here at my calendar, it's been so busy, I don't even know what's going on the next minute. And so let's see here today. It looks to me like it is 2:30. Okay, so my next, oh wow, I've got a full slate this afternoon of consultations from 2:30 through. So we've got time here to answer questions. So don't worry, hang in there, and we will get to helping you. So if you're just tuning in, this is the Canadian Immigration Live Q&A hosted by myself, Mark Holthe. I'm a little bit more casual today with my messed up collar and and casual attire because I slipped out this morning quickly to go get my bicycle from the police station. And you can watch the live video that I did on our Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page a little bit earlier today, where I talk a little bit about it. And I did a very detailed one when the police notified me that they'd found it. And that's on the YouTube channel. So you have to check those out. Those were pretty fun making those, but it's a good day today. All right, so here's what we've got. The first question here, I'm just going to clear up everything on my page again. And I think I actually may even be able to just take Igor's email and share the screen with you. That'll make it easier for everybody to see. And I think this will help too. So, and most of this information, there's nothing confidential in here, so we're good. Okay, so the first question, you can see social media. This one came from Instagram. Very cool. This is Arvinder Singh. He says, can contents be the same on all reference letters as the knock in the same in all the jobs I did? So Arvinder, this question is an express entry related one, and he's asking about what our letters need to look like. And I think we all know there are certain things that need to be included. And if I shift gears here, I've got a bunch of other links here. We're going to go to the old faithful EE Completeness Check website, which I love. And then we're going to pull up the work history or the proof of work experience. You'll see here, as we're going forward at Arvinder, that obviously, and many of you already know this right now, if you're getting your reference letter from your employer, which is mandatory, you should include all the positions held with the company and the following details. So job title, duties, this right here, and responsibilities, job status, dates worked for the company, number of work hours per week, the annual salary plus benefits. And so that is what you are to include. And so when it comes to the duties and responsibilities, this is super important. And if we go back to the question that was asked here by Arvinder, you don't want your letters to all look the same. There's nothing wrong necessarily with that, but the reality is if they all look identical, for example, if people go and they go to my Canadian Immigration Institute site, and Igor has so awesomely adjusted this to make it way more easier, and we look at the courses, and then we see within the courses that I have here, I'll just log in and I'll show you. This is important, okay? Because within my Express Entry course here, I'll open up the actual course itself here as I flip through it. This Express Entry Do-It-Yourself Guide has a section specifically about the documents and uploading them. And Lesson 40 here has a ton of sample documents for all of you guys. So if you go through here, you'll see at the end, we have downloads for a ton of things, including, you can see here, sample employment reference letters for record of employment, sample job offer letters. Well, you could go in here, and maybe I can even take one other step and just pull this up. Why not? Let's see if I can actually make it visible so everybody can see it. So yeah, so there we go. So I have a very simple, bare-boned example of what I have my my clients do. But if everybody took this and copied it word for word, used the same formatting, and just replace the information, immigration is going to wonder what the heck's going on. These are people that you have listed Mark as their representative. Well, is this genuine? Does the company actually issue letters that, they all have the same? Or did Mark or his clients just do them themselves and the company didn't even know about it? Is it some kind of a fraudulent document? And of course, the likelihood of them thinking that is going to be pretty low. But it's a reality that if everything looks the same, an officer is going to question it because different companies have different formats, different fonts. So in your case, the question here that was asked, I'm just going to flip back to there we go, Igor's email that he's compiled for me. The question for Arvinder, you need to be careful. And when it comes to the actual duties themselves, you don't want to copy the knock description word for word. And we've talked about this a lot as well. So if I shift back here, I'm going to show you guys one other thing. And I haven't talked about this for a while, but it's important. The knock codes we find on the 2016 National Occupational Classification System. And so if we just put something in here, I'll search by a title. We'll go 1122, which is pretty common, management consultant. And so the management consultant, these duties here, if you just take this for the main duties and you just copy all of these and just paste them into the letter, that's not a good thing to do because immigration is going to say, is this genuine? These duties need to reflect actually what you were doing. So you don't want everything to be identical across all of your reference letters. Now, obviously, many employers say, look, Mark, I'm happy to provide it, but I don't have time to put this letter together. You do it, then we'll review it together, and then I'll sign off, which is totally fine. But you need to make sure that it's not all looking identical and that you're not copying these word for word. You need to describe it in the way that you do it. But with that being said, you need to make sure that each of these duties do match with a corresponding duty in your letter. Immigration doesn't know exactly what you've done. you're not there, even though you know you've done all these things. Your letter must include all of these duties, and or at least a substantial number of them, which in the case of this management consultant is all there. It's factored based on all of these except the last one. Whenever it says may supervise or may do something, that's optional. So I take these ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I say, well, I probably need to do at least 4 of these out of 6 to be substantial. And, a substantial number of these, probably 4. And I make sure that my letter actually lists duties that correspond with each at least 4, or in the best case, all of these in the reference letter, because that's all the officer has to go on. And the reason I brought this up right now, and some of you are like, seriously, Mark, we know this. Okay, well, that's fine. But understand, I've had consultations with people just this past 2 weeks where numerous people have expressed that their applications have been rejected because their reference letters did not match with at least 75%. And I use that kind of as a ballpark figure to represent substantial number. So the substantial number of those main duties. So you must absolutely be careful that your letter does hit on those. If they don't, they're going to say, sorry, you didn't meet the requirements. And I just got a very, very sad email back from a client just this morning who had a nomination from a province. And because the reference letter, even though the province accepted it and said it's just fine, IRCC did not. And they rejected the application. And guess what happened? By the time they got around to rejecting it, that nomination from the province was expired. And guess what? In this world of COVID-19 and this world of layoffs and people not working, how many provinces do you think are going to actually reissue that nomination to you in the current environment we're in? So I have no excuse whatsoever, or I have no reservations of plugging the heck out of booking a consultation with us and actually having us go through in the collaborative fashion that we do to help you make sure everything in your application is correct. Because now you're going to be royally hooped. You're going to be in a huge problem if something as small as this results in your application getting returned, because it's just not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen, and your dream of being able to stay in Canada is going to disappear. Your dream of being able to come to Canada in the first place as a permanent resident is going to be gone forever. And I am not fear-mongering. This is the truth. It's a fact. And you guys need to understand it. And so that's what we do. We're here to help you to avoid that from happening. And so what's my advice to my client? Put your profile back immediately into the pool and keep your fingers crossed that you can get drawn under the regular stream. Now, like I said before, and I apologize to take so much time for this one question, but it's really important. We don't know what's going to happen with these rounds of invitations. If they do decide to keep doing them, some of you that are hovering around 460 or even maybe a little bit lower could very well see your name drawn, because without the ability to do language tests, new candidates are not piling into the profile to take all those top cream spots. And so if you've been languishing in the pool at 460 or maybe even lower, it's entirely possible if they do another round of invitation, you could be pulled out. You could just have your chance. But we don't know. We haven't heard. So I'll keep my fingers crossed for all of you, people that have been just waiting so patiently. And we'll see what happens. Maybe there's a silver lining to many of you with everything that's been happening globally. So thank you very much for that question. Okay, we're going to go to just one more question from the list of people that have sent them in, and then we will go back and I'll answer all the live questions. And then what I may do is another one on Thursday at, well, you know what? Let's just keep it at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I know it's a little bit later for many of you all over there, but we'll probably keep it at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time just because I want to have consistency and I don't want to flip-flop back and forth. So Thursday we'll do another one. And right now, we're not going to get through all these questions that were sent in by listeners, but please go to our Instagram account, go to our Instagram, look for Holthe Immigration Law, go to our Twitter page. Feel free to reach out to us through those avenues as well as Facebook and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, as always, you can send an email if you have a question to, let me just see if I can pull it up quickly. I probably can't. I've been struggling with these emails. Oh, yes, I can. There it is. You can send an email right here to info@holthelaw.ca. with your question. And in this case, just indicate, because in the past, I think we had, let's see if I can find it. I had you put this, okay? So I had you put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. Well, now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go in, I'm going to change this, and you're going to put in now this into your email, Immigration Live Q&A, okay? So that is what I want you to do. And then if you do that, then we will consider, we'll consider answering it in an upcoming EE Live Q&A, all right? Okay, so we'll close that one out. We'll keep the info down here so that you guys can see it, okay? And really, info@holthelaw.com is the point of contact for everything within the firm, except if you would like to book a paid consultation and get the ball rolling to have us help you, you can just go to our site. Igor will just post the link. Once again, you can just click on Start Here and fill out the information to guide us to exactly what your issue is, whether it's individual immigration. You know, many of you, it'll be, I want to immigrate permanently to Canada, select an option. I live outside Canada and I want to immigrate through express entry. Maybe this is it. Then fill out your information and it will come to us and we can book that consult. We charge $200, $210, which includes tax, for a 25-minute consult. And, you know, it is what it is, guys. I'm not going to try to convince you that it's helpful. You can decide for yourself, but I've got 3 consults waiting for me as soon as I'm off of here. And I can tell you in that 25 minutes, it will be totally worth your time, because we can sort through right to the core of your issue, get it resolved, send you on your way. Or if you feel like you need a little extra help, then we're there to provide super supportive, collaborative help as you go through your whole express entry process or anything related to Canadian immigration. Okay, back to, and I guess I probably wasn't sharing my screen, wasn't I? Probably not. This is the site, and you click on the Start Here button, and then you can go through and answer the questions, the drop-down menus, which guides you exactly to where you can enter the information in to request the consult. So it's right here on our Start Here page. All right. Okay, next question. Let's jump onto it right here. Okay, this one is from Elsama Anthony, and this is via Facebook. Hi, Mark. I'm Anto Anthony from India. I have a question to ask, which I'm not sure of whether it falls under the general category or not. Well, if it made it through, then to me at this stage, then it was general enough. Okay, I applied for an open work permit, spousal work permit. My application got refused on September 2019. Okay, I assume, Elsama, I assume, Anto, that you're outside of the country, obviously from India, and that you applied to join your spouse in Canada. I'm assuming that's the case. So I reapplied on October the 6th. And 6 months, well, you reapplied on October, and it says right here, 6 months have passed and there's been no updates from IRCC. In order to know about the application, you've raised web forms. There's been no response. The last one was sent almost a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and you're still waiting. And so the question was, you applied in September, refused October, you applied again. Is it normal for it to be 6 months to make a decision? It is not normal for it to be 6 months to make a decision. It's not. But what I will tell you is we are not in normal times. And once again, I'm not even sharing my screen here. So my apologies. Let me see if I can blow this up here so that you guys can see it a little bit better. Oh my goodness. This is what you get working with someone who's kind of managing everything. Maybe one day I'll have Igor take this over for me, but we haven't quite figured it out with the nature of these live Q&As. Anyways, so you can see here 6 months. Yeah, we're not in normal time. We're not. The reality is these are definitely abnormal times. And so it's not normal for it to be 6 months, but in these circumstances, I'm not surprised. They know that, when it comes to travel, whether or not your travel is considered to be essential, that you're going to have to make that pitch. You've been apart now. Is it critical that you travel to Canada right now? And that's where the arguments are made. And yes, they are trying to help with the facilitation of family. But in your case, when you've already had a previous refusal, it's going to be really, really difficult to get the second one approved. But at this stage, yeah, when it comes to waiting and just wondering, is it approved? Is it rejected? What's my status? Everybody is under a significantly delayed circumstance resulting in increased processing times. There's just fewer officers that are actively working because of the social distancing, the fact that some officers have to undergo self-isolation. Immigration has not traditionally had, visa officers working out of their homes and those kinds of things. So there's a whole bunch of issues contributing to the delays. All right. Great questions. Very, very good. I'm going to leave those ones aside. Check this out. Yeah. I have goofy sound effects that I'm definitely not going to do. I just did it just for fun, except for this one, which now means it's time to switch over to the questions that people are posting live that have been so patient, who've been waiting so carefully. And so what we're going to do is here, I have got the last one that I see on my screen is from Nilesh Patel. And so I will answer Nilesh's, and then I will go through from Nilesh, and you all post your questions now. I will do my very best to get through as many as I can. I'm going to try to not spend as much time explaining all of the background so that I can give people direct answers. Normally, I always like to provide the link or to show on the government website where the information is. But at this stage, I'm going to forego that so that I can just get through more questions. So if you have any follow-up questions, or if your question in particular is of a special, a unique circumstance or something that relates specifically to you, remember, those questions need to go through a paid consultation. So the questions need to be a benefit to everybody, all of the people that are actually watching this live. So post your questions now if you'd like me to answer your answer your question. Okay, so Nilesh says, I hope you're staying safe. I'm on a postgrad work permit which is expiring in July 2020. Will IRCC provide automatic extensions due to COVID-19, or any chances of extending the permit on the basis of COVID-19, or it requires an LMIA? Nilesh, this is a perfect question because the direction that we received today was for you to go ahead and file your work permit extension. The important thing is that you maintain implied status, whether that's to be able to continue receiving employment insurance if you've been laid off, no matter what it is. So if you're in the context of a postgrad work permit, Nilesh, you haven't indicated if you have, a permanent resident application in the queue or anything like that. But at this stage, they're actually encouraging people to go ahead and submit their extension application, even though they may not have a labor market impact assessment, even though they may not normally be able to file those types of extensions without the LMIA. Or, for instance, a bridging open work permit, the availability of that acknowledgement of receipt when you've submitted your PR application, which then allows you to use that acknowledgement of receipt to apply for a bridging open work permit, which many, many people do in the context of postgrad work permits like you, Nilesh. So they're actually encouraging people to apply to extend their stay, to explain that they don't have an LMIA yet or a job offer yet from their employer. And they've instructed us to actually file those applications. So July 2020, you've got time, right? So you're dealing with time. And there's a whole bunch of other issues. I just did an interview with one of the CBC newspaper reporters in Calgary on the problems that exist for people with continuing to retain healthcare coverage when they are in implied status. They have a work permit extension application. Most provinces then do not cover during that time. Now, I will say that there's very few that will refuse to care, like they will refuse to help you, and basically, like I said, refuse care. But who's going to pay for it? So the way the rule works for most provinces is if you're in that implied status period. Now, some have grace periods, like Alberta has up to a 90-day grace period while you're on implied status where they continue to cover you. But if it goes beyond that, which is entirely possible, right now processing times are right around 90 days. At least that's what they're posted for an online work permit extension application. But guys, that was like 3 weeks ago or longer that they last updated it. And it's entirely possible and will be and inevitable that those processing times will climb into the stratosphere. So for people that are wondering whether or not to extend, yes, you do extend. And is there going to be an automatic one like Spain and Portugal, for instance, are doing? At this stage, the government has shown no aptitude to do that. They said, we want to bide our time. We want to make sure that we're making the correct decisions. We don't want to rush to make any decisions, but they have encouraged people to apply, even though you may not have a pathway forward, which, as an immigration lawyer, I never would ever file a frivolous application. And so when I'm submitting my applications, I will definitely do them in a way that it's a legitimate work permit request. I use the C10 category. At least that's what I will be using when I'm filing my applications. Now, traditionally, the elements of what's required for a C10 may not all be there for a particular candidate, but I think I can make some pretty good arguments. So those are the types of things that I'm going to be submitting. And it may be at the end of the day, those work permits are not approved. Maybe when the final decisions are made 4, 5, 6 months down the road. But by doing that, it does allow you to continue working under implied status. And what I'm hoping is that the federal government will coordinate with all of the provincial health authorities to open it up so that coverage is extended to cover the period of implied status when people are waiting for decisions on their extension applications. So that's what I'm hoping they'll do, and that's what I'm advocating for, but we'll see whether or not they actually choose to do that. All right. Okay. Dara, let's see. So we're going to jump to now to, okay, Arvinder says, hi, Mark, my question is 2. Okay, well, I'll answer 1. I was rejected a sponsorship visa back in 2010. My biological parents are citizens there. And then I applied for a visitor visa in 2017. On all my documents, the name of my biological parents is mentioned, and I'm adopted since birth. So in 2017, I applied a common visa file using adoption deed so that I could be related to the parents who adopted me. So my question is, will I get points for my biological brother who is a citizen there? What document is to be shown for proving biological brother? Okay, Arvinder, this here is way more complicated than a simple answer here. When it comes to documents showing proof of biological brother, they're no different than you would include if you were submitting application, for anyone else. It's a birth certificate. Do you have a birth certificate that shows both of you are listed as having the same parents, or at least one parent? That's the documents they ask for in the context of an immigration application if you're needing to prove it. For citizens in India and other countries, sometimes the passport will also indicate family members or a family member group sheet, depending on what country you're in. But those traditional civil status documents, that's what you're looking for, Arvinder. Okay, Kabir says, hey, Mr. Holthe, just out of curiosity and for knowledge's sake, when did Canada first start issuing PRs for the entire world? Which year? Also, what was the processing time before express entry? I believe it could be as long as 5 years. Thanks, and wish you all the best of health always. You're awesome and do some great work. Thanks a ton. Kabir, thanks so much. That's a great question. Actually, part of the reason that I was writing my paper till 3 a.m. last night, some of you have tuned in late. I was up till 3 a.m. writing a paper for a conference down in the US, which probably is not going to happen through our global migration section. And it's probably going to go virtual, but I was writing a paper and it was all on the steps Canada does from an immigration perspective to attract talent, to attract highly skilled talent, people that are master's degrees, that are professionals. And what is Canada doing to make themselves more competitive than many of the other countries in the world? And Canada ranks super, super high on a lot of the rankings in terms of desirability and attractiveness to highly skilled talent. And you guys are all fit within that category, right? Why do you want to choose Canada versus Australia or the US or European countries, right? And so I spent a lot of time researching this, and Canada has been in this game for many, many, many years. And the first PRs, well, the reality is back when Canada was just forming, there were tons of European immigrants that just got on a boat and came over. They were registered, and then they were encouraged to go out and populate the country. They were in many cases for very, very nominal fees, if not free, were given the opportunity to go claim a plot of land and say it's yours. So, and to go out into these lands, and the history of Canada is quite fascinating. But we are a history of immigrants. And did you guys know that 1 in 5 people in Canada was not born here? And can you imagine that? Is that not cool or what? 1 in 5 people in Canada right now come through immigration. They were not born here. They're naturalized. And whether that's a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen, you can see those numbers are just increasing. So It is so cool to think about it. So great question. Okay, processing times before express entry. Well, in some countries, it was 7 or 8 years. People were dying before their applications got approved. So some of you who are complaining that your applications are now going to go beyond 6 months, give me a break. The reality is, before express entry existed, it was taking people up to 7 or 8 years. Who's going to sit around and wait that long? Canada, because we're constantly trying to bring in the people that we need, the immigrants we need for the future of our country. And we are going to need you as the baby boomers start to retire. This big labor group starts to get into retirement. We need people to be able to support their retirement. And we've got room here. And so Canada's policies have been very, very open and pro-immigration and very aggressively targeting all of you, right? That's why you're here right now. So imagine waiting 8 years to get an application processed. That should help some of you to put it into context. Okay, Steve Hans says, what if a company does not agree to write working hours on the reference letter? Steve, you got to figure something else out. We talk about this a lot on this on the EE Live Q&A, but anything that the government asks you to do, you need to do it. And you can't just escape it and say, well, the employer didn't want to do it. Then you got to figure out whatever you can to be able to prove that you were actually working permanent. Now, maybe they say that you were working permanent full-time or you were full-time, and maybe then you bring in other evidence to support that full-time means at least 30 hours. But I would never, ever submit a reference letter just on its own without hours, without doing something to add other documentation to support or prove it. Your mere attestation, yes, I swear I was working at least 30 hours during this work, is not good enough. So be creative, Steve. These are things that I have consults with people all the time about. Okay, Rami says, do you think there's going to be an express entry draw tomorrow? Who knows? Who knows, Rami? It's possible. We look back, we take a look. Let's open it up. Let's flip over here, and I'll just do this really quick because I want to show you guys something here. Rounds of invitations. If we look here, the last round was issued March 23rd. So we are definitely in the range where they could do it again. You can see here the last round was just for Canadian Experience class. So the Federal Skilled Worker Program, you guys that are outside of the country, we're probably overdue for you. I'm just going to give me 1 second here. I just want to get the right screen here. There we go. It was bouncing all over the place here. Let me just see. I just want to try to make one little change here. Okay, let's see here if we got this. I think we've got it here. I just wanted to figure something out here. There. Okay, so basically, like I said, the rounds of invitations, we are overdue. It's possible. When you look at the number of people that are in the pool, remember, this is as of March the 13th. Well, the reality is very shortly at that time or even before, English language tests were not available. So you just couldn't, they were canceled. So if you had one booked and all of the people that normally would pile into this area of, this upper area, I guess we could say right here, 470 up to, well, this area right here, there, I think you guys can see that. This area of, 470 to 490, that's where the sweet spot has been. And so we know as of March the 13th, there was this many people in that area. And then there was another 254 at the 600 level. And then we had these PNP candidates that are 600 plus. Okay, so we know we had all of those people, but as of March the 23rd, many of these were probably Canadian Experience class and so got flushed out. And we saw the CRS total drop to 467. And so even some of these down here, in the 461 to 470 range, some of these were pulled out as well. So what that means is if there's no new candidates coming in to replenish these, people at least that had not yet written the English test, we've got a very, very good chance that if there's a draw, that draw is maybe going to dip down more into this range, the 460 to 470. Now, is it going to go back all the way down to 461? No, I highly doubt that, because during the rounds of invitations, here they issued 3,232. Okay. And so that's kind of the range of where they're drawing, 3,000 to 3,500. And so you have to take into consideration that that there's going to be a number of people that are sitting right here in the 461 to 470, languishing away under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, that may very well now have the opportunity to get an ITA if there is a draw. So I'm going to cross my fingers, Rami, and I'm going to say maybe, hopefully, possibly, but maybe not too. No indication. I have nothing to announce here. Okay, Nara says, "Hi Mark, I am in lockdown and cannot travel. My flight has been canceled and I'm afraid of traveling with kids, even if the lockdown is uplifted in the current situation. My COPR is expiring last week of April. Will I get an extension?" You know the process. We've talked about it. Susan showed you on our on the blog post that she created here. There's information. You can go here to the COVID-19 travel restriction blog that she did, and at the bottom we have some awesome links. One of them is the second link here that you see, to how the coronavirus applies. Then you look at the travel restrictions, and when we're going through this, it specifically addresses how you deal with travel. And so if we keep scrolling down here, permanent residence, okay, so then it gives us the instructions. So if you are unable to travel, let's see if here, okay, sorry, I've got to get to the right section here. Bear with me here as I'm floundering all over the place trying to remember everything. Permanent residence, that's the one we're looking for. Okay, so will I be allowed to re-enter if I'm a permanent resident? Are my family members allowed? Okay, so you can see here, if you scroll down, there are actually links on how things are, basically how it's applied. Let's see here if we can find the... This is where it's always good to have another person who is on top of things to be able to find the information we're looking for. So in your situation, an inability to travel is a significant factor. So it says right here, approved permanent residents with expired or approved permanent resident applicants with expired or expiring documents. So if you've already approved but you can't travel, then use the web form to tell them why you can't travel. So it's up to you to determine and to make your case as to why you're unable to travel. And we don't know how it's going to apply if you say, I just don't want to travel because, the health of my kids. Well, if your COPR is expiring in the last week of April, then this is what you're going to do. You're going to extend a web form and you're just going to request an extension. Then as far as the kids and everything else, you're going to then have to figure it out at that time, how the landscape has changed, if the travel restrictions have been lifted, if you're actually, if the situation is such that COVID-19 has created, it's kind of dissipated and you can travel safely. So keep that keep that in mind. Okay, so next question is Kabir. He says, he asked that question twice. Maud says, my COPR is expiring on April 26th. Will I get an extension? Oh, there it is again. Did we just get a duplication? No, it looks like most people are asking the same question. So Maud just asked the same question that Nara did. So hopefully that answers your question as well, Maud. Okay, Anshu says, I got an invitation from the Ontario PNP and I've submitted my application on February the 26th. It's being assessed right now. My score's increased on my wife's ECA. Now my score has increased as my wife's ECA got completed. Now, if a draw takes place, am I expecting a direct invitation? Should I withdraw my PNP application in that case and go ahead with direct ITA if I get it, or is there anything else I should do? Anshu, this is a great question. You are 100%, my friend, 100%. I'll just shift back to me here. Not going to withdraw your PNP application for permanent residence. You are not going to do that. If you get drawn independently through through the express entry process, and I'm assuming that your Ontario PNP is maybe through one of the paper-based streams, maybe, I'm assuming, and that's why you're now considering what to do if you get an ITA. So if you get that ITA, then you just proceed with both of them. Do not withdraw your first one. Keep it in the queue. Immigration at some point will make you make a determination yourself as to which one you're going to keep. There was a time when I told people just withdraw when that time came, but I would almost, in your situation, pay the extra processing fees and have both of them go forward. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the restrictions are. With layoffs and everything that's happening here, maybe your chances of getting your invitation, your permanent residence through express entry are more solid, and that the PNP will actually unravel if your employment is being affected by layoffs. So keep them both in there, Anshu. That's a fantastic question. Great question. Okay, Bapasha says, after soft landing and receiving a PR card and coming back to home country, is there any time limitation to enter Canada again? No, the only limitation you have is maintaining your permanent resident status. And in order to do that, Bipasha, you need to be able to show that you've lived for at least 2 years in Canada in the 5-year period immediately preceding the date you apply to extend your PR card. So you've got time. Okay, Masood says, I'm unable to link my work permit application with my online account. Yes, Masood, that happens a lot. I have the application number, UCI. I'm entering the rest of the info correctly. However, due to some reason, the system can't find my application. It's probably because of however you answered your information in your original work permit application that is preventing it from being linked. So the data that they have there is not lining up perfectly with what you're putting in. The UCI number alone is not enough. And so maybe it's your address, maybe it's your postal code, maybe it's something else that you might have been using. I would also make sure that you actually have received confirmation, which I'm assuming you have, given the fact you've got an application number, that it was received by immigration. But yeah, we run into those issues, and it's a feeling out period. You can maybe try calling the call center, but you know how far that goes these days. Okay, we're at 2:14 here. Wow, we are cruising. Okay, Ban says, any idea if GCMS notes processing time is also affected by COVID? Yes, in fact, in many cases, they've actually stopped. They've just stopped processing because they need those staff to work on more essential services. Now, we've made requests that not happen and that they proceed forward. But understand, guys, if you're hoping to get GCMS notes back to understand why your files are being delayed or what's happening, expect that those are not going to be responded to. And if they are, that it's going to be well past when COVID-19 has resolved itself. So if you made a mistake on your application, good luck using a GCMS to figure it out. But one thing I would recommend that, I do this all the time with my clients. We go in, there's a way to take a look at your EAPR through this little trick, I guess you could call, within the browser. You can go back and look at the answers that you've provided. And I do consultations with people, formal reviews of their applications, even after they're submitted. And you don't have to wait for them to determine whether or not there's problems. I can look at your application and identify myself by giving it a thorough review. Obviously, but people aren't going to want to pay that money probably for me to go through and do a formal review of everything. But if you have serious concerns or questions, then a consult's a great place to start. Okay, Wellwyn says, I've entered my profile under CC, and because I start my work in the month of May 16th, 2018, as of April 1st, 2020, my profile shows that I have 2 years of Canadian work. Yes, they count it by month. So if you've worked only 1 day in 1 month, let's say you start May 31st, and then you finish your work on April the 1st of the next year, they're going to give you credit for all of May and all of April. Okay, so if we go the number of days worked, blah, 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 I see that should I accept my ITA if I receive it now at 475 with 2 years of experience, or should I wait for an ITA received after completing 729 days? If you're sitting at 475, Wellwyn, I actually encourage people to wait. Wait until you've actually accumulated that time. If you're in a situation where there's layoffs and you're trying to qualify under the CEC, and obviously they're always going to go back and be able to look at this and reassess. Often they give clients the benefit of the doubt, but that usually is because by the time they've got around to assessing it, it's been 2 months and you've actually continued to work for that same company. So it's really not an issue. But in your situation, I would, at 475, I would actually wait to actually make sure you've got that time. I wouldn't take a chance and rely on the generous issuance of CRS points by the comprehensive ranking system. Okay, Dimash says, trust you and family are safe. My question, I'm from India and I have worked in Iraq 6 years ago. Still, do I need PCC for applying? Yes, you do need a PCC at the end. But what the government is doing is they're being flexible with documents you can't obtain. They're not going to approve your application without the PCC. Only under extremely rare circumstances can you get that through without a PCC. Iraq is obviously a tough country, but the reality is you can file your application and just give evidence that you can't obtain it. And that goes for any of the essential documents, medical. Obviously, you've already received your ITA, but if you for whatever reason you can't get a medical or police certificates, then in those circumstances you can submit your application and just explain, and immigration will be generous. They will not bounce your express entry application now if you don't have a document in there, but they will easily reject it 100% if there's a problem with what you're providing. Okay. Okay, let's see. Osama Anthony says, thank you for your reply. You're very welcome. Ambi says, hey, Mark, quick question. Is it essential to have worked for 1 year continuous before I could apply for PR through CEC, or is it 1 year cumulatively? It's cumulatively, Ambi. The CEC, I won't go to the actual website, but if you look CEC eligibility, you can see there that the continuous 1 year full-time only applies to the federal skilled worker program. You can build up your 1 year in the previous 3 years, bits and pieces from different companies. And they can also be in different NOCs as long as they're all skilled. Raman says, I hope you're safe and doing well. Please confirm whether IRC has stopped processing express entry for files for 6 months due to COVID. No, they have not stopped processing. Okay, any consultants out there who are peddling that garbage is not true. They are continuing to process. But what is happening is, in some cases, like if you're in Canada, they're holding off on issuing the confirmations of permanent residence until they figured out how they're going to land people. And they have to make significant changes, regulatory and regulatory changes to allow that to be possible. And so when they're going through that process to make those changes, it just takes time. And so there's a number of people who are waiting for instructions on how to complete their landing. All right, Narasha says, is IRCC going to send PPR emails soon? We just have to wait and see, right? We just have to wait and see. But right now, they did indicate, I asked them specifically today, are you continuing to issue COPRs for express entry candidates? And they said yes, albeit it's much, much slowed. It's really reduced. And you think in a visa office, when you have staff that are processing applications, or even in Canada, there are significant priorities that the government are placing for immigration. And express entry for new people coming to Canada is not one of them. So it doesn't mean that your application is going to get refused. It does mean that the processing will be delayed. And their view is everybody needs to just hunker down in your home countries, and no one should be immigrating to Canada new until this whole thing is settled down. We need to stay put, respect the travel bans, do our part as a global community to restrict the spread of COVID-19. And so that's why you're seeing a delay, and it makes perfect sense. They need to spend their time issuing work permits for essential services, agricultural workers who are coming to maintain food supplies, healthcare, that are coming to maintain health and hospitals and things like that in Canada. Those types of work permits, priority is being given to those to process them. International students who have not yet started in school, that's a whole different discussion. And I may even do a special live Q&A in my student permit, my study permit law Facebook page. I may do that, or I might do it here. We'll see. But there's a whole bunch of issues that are coming up with that don't have answers. There's far more questions than there are answers. Okay. Okay, Kabir says, Dear Mark, just wanted to know, is the PR card valid for 5 years from the issue date or from landing date? Also, if we don't have a PR card, can we apply for permanent resident travel document? Is there any way it can be refused? So Kabir, it all comes down to the essential travel, right? If you're not in Canada right now, is the need for your travel, is it more optional or kind of discretionary? And if it is, then they just recommend that you don't travel. Now, if you're a permanent resident, you are a permanent resident and you are entitled to return to Canada. When it comes to not having a PR card, well, yes, you can apply for a permanent resident travel document, but that PRTD is also going to be assessed, and you'll have to prove that you've met the residency requirements to maintain PR. In terms of the validity of the PR card, usually the PR card is issued from the validity date. You know what? Actually, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. I could open up Igor's right now. I actually need to send it to you, Igor. I have Igor and his wife Tatiana's PR cards right behind me. I won't take time to do that because I've got to jump on a consult in about 7 minutes. And so I want to get through as many as possible, but I'm not really sure. I can't remember if it's from the date that the confirmation of permanent residence was obtained, or whether it's the date that they basically decide to issue or extend the PR card. I can't remember what it is. Okay. Okay, let's see if there's, I'll answer maybe one more question. Okay, this is an important one. So Akshesh, this will probably extend to many people who are watching this from within Canada. He says, I've already got an invitation to apply and I've submitted all the required documents, but due to COVID-19, my employer has given me a temporary layoff. How this will impact my Manitoba PNP files and its temporary layoff due to COVID-19. Great question. So when it comes to any of these PR applications that are based on employment, understand, guys, that we don't know where things are going to go. We expect that the government will try to facilitate, and they're talking about ways and trying to look at ways to help facilitate people. But the reality is, at the end of the day, you have to be able to show that you can economically establish in Canada. And if you no longer have a job, if the layoff is a permanent layoff, if the employer that you have has to close its doors and fold, then in those circumstances, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to continue and succeed with your PR application, especially through the various provincial nominee programs. If you, in the context of your application, if your employer is willing to issue a letter that says, look, it's just because of these social distancing rules imposed on us that we're forced to close our premises, we will open up the moment they're lifted, that's going to be treated a whole lot different than someone who no longer has a job to return to. So we don't have any direct answers. One thing we do know that they are very reluctant to change eligibility requirements or any of the specific fundamental assessment requirements for an application. They are willing to be flexible and allow people to submit without all the documents, to give them time to submit after, to give extensions to get the documents. But what formulates a complete application, they are still holding very rigid to it. And if your application is all based on a job offer from an employer in Manitoba, and that employer no longer has a job for you, that does have a very significant chance of affecting your ability to have it go forward. All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to have to jump off now here so that I can get to these consultations that I've booked. I want to express a sincere gratitude for everyone that's joined me live. Eventually, we're going to sort this out and we're going to make this better. We're going to, I'm going to try to make it more targeted. I'm going to try to do more of these, but I've got a ton of resources out there for you. So you may not have been able to get your question answered now. Those related to COVID-19, we've got answers, we've got directions, everything that's available. We've made very clearly, I'll just post here, go to the Canadian Immigration Institute. I've got so many things going on here. Go to Holthe Immigration Law, our website. It's just holthelaw.com. Go to our blog here, and you'll see at the bottom, actually, we've got this interesting little spread the message, stop the virus. Check it out. Wash your hands. Cough into your elbow. Don't touch your face. And I've got the most itchiest face in the history of the world, you guys. And it's so hard for me not to do that. And my nose, which is always itchy. Avoid crowds and stay home. And so, right now we've got 1.3 million confirmed cases with an awesome 276,000 recovered, which is so amazing, so cool. So I want you guys, it looks like I'm getting my call right now. So I better get going and jump off, but there's tons of resources. Go check them out all over Facebook land. And I look forward to connecting with all of you guys on Thursday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, wishing you guys all the very best. Stay safe, okay? Take care.